All right. Hi, I'm Molly McMahon-Cordy, founder of Project Just Like You. I began this journey after my son Jacob was diagnosed with autism in 2016. I jumped into sharing stories to show how we are all more alike than different. It started as a social media campaign and has now become a nonprofit as of last summer. Thank you for your support. If Heart Month, we're talking about Heart Month now on Project Just Like You. And if this is something that is personal to you, we encourage you to share this with your friends and family. If you'd like to sponsor a story, you can click on the donate button at Facebook. Every little bit helps. We are also being produced by Fiat Media, and we give them a huge shout out and a big thank you. And you can check them out on their page on Fiat Ministry on Facebook and their webpage. Today is Movement Monday, a new initiative of Project Just Like You. Our goal is to introduce you to people who are part of the special needs world, people who support and advocate for inclusion, and anyone else whom we think you might find interesting as champions of people with special needs. Join our movement by watching Movement Mondays each week. And I hope you'll take the time to click and share and tell other friends about what you're watching. So we're going to start right into we're going to start right into this. I'm having trouble speaking right now. And if you're outside the U.S., let us know if you're following us, because we know we have followers all around the world. So just let us know where you're from by typing your city and your state in the comment field. And we're also going to monitor your comments. So we hope that you'll chime in. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And now I'll just go ahead and introduce who we're interviewing today. So we have with us Brooke Wilkerson, who is a 28-year-old blogger. She's an author and a speaker who lives outside of Nashville with her husband and 3 children. She has seen her son, Miles, through open heart surgery at 4 months of age and has been a single mom, a married mom, a working mom, and a stay-at-home mom. Read more on her website and follow her on Facebook. And we will post a link in her comments too. Brooke, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We are so glad that you're with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're thrilled to have you on board and for you to share your story and share your time with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Brooke, this month is all about CHD and Heart Month. Yeah. We have many people in our audience who don't know what this is. Can you tell us about what CHD is and help us understand it?
Yeah, so CHD stands for congenital heart disease or congenital heart defect. And basically all that means is it's a heart defect that someone is born with. So it's not something that, develops over time due to poor eating habits or things like that. It's something you're born with, and it's the #1 birth defect in the U.S. So the average is about 1 in 100 babies, or about 40,000 babies a year are born with a heart defect.
Wow. Yeah. That is a huge number.
It is.
And so tell us about the diagnosis with Miles. How did you find out, and just walk us through this, Brooke? Because
our diagnosis process, which everyone's story is different, but our diagnosis process was a long one. It started with our 20-week ultrasound, our anatomy scan, and the technician had a hard time getting all of the images of his heart. At that point, it wasn't really alarming because the doctor that we were at, they didn't have, the latest equipment and things like that. So it wasn't all that uncommon for them to send somebody to a specialist to redo the anatomy scan. But when we had our anatomy scan done by the specialist, the technician there also couldn't get the images. The specialist couldn't get the images. And we ended up being every single month up until the month he was born, we went to a cardiologist and we had a fetal echo done. And every single month they couldn't say for sure if he had a heart defect or not. And he was healthy otherwise. He was growing, he was moving, he was active, but they just couldn't get the pictures, and they weren't comfortable enough to say that he does or he doesn't have a heart defect. So that was a roller coaster ride. And then I think it was about 3 weeks before he was actually born, we scheduled an extra echo, just one last try to see if they could find anything. And that's when we met Dr. Holland. He was the last cardiologist in the practice that we hadn't seen yet. And we went in for the echo, and he said that Miles had a heart defect, and it was tetralogy of Fallot. Mm-hmm. So we ended up having to deliver at Kosar Children's Hospital, which is now Norton's Children's Hospital. We had to deliver there, which was like about an hour and a half away from home. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. So what were you feeling, Brooke? Like when you were told with this diagnosis, what were you feeling? What was going on in your mind?
You know, at the point when we finally got a diagnosis, it was mostly, I mean, it was upsetting, but there was also a little bit of relief because it had been 4 or 5 months of not knowing. And I'm just a curious person anyway, but just to not know, okay, is something wrong or is something not wrong? Like I needed to know so that I could like mentally prepare for it. So, I mean, it was terrifying. Like I remember just like saying out loud the first couple of times to our friends and family that Miles was going to have open heart surgery, and just how like strange and foreign that sounded to say out loud. So yeah, it was scary, a little bit of relief that we finally had a diagnosis, but just really scary. I didn't know anyone who had ever been through that before.
So in that leads into the next thing. So you didn't know anyone. So tell me then about your tribe now. You have the strong connection now with the CHD community. So talk about that. How has that helped you, and how has that impacted you?
Well, I wish I would have known them before his surgery, because I'm sure that would have made things a lot better than it actually went. But, you know, really after his surgery, I started reaching out to people and getting into CHD communities and things like that. And it's so helpful because people, you know, someone who hasn't been through that kind of experience, I don't think that they really understand. It's not something you can really understand unless you've been through it. And so it's nice to have that kind of connection, and it's nice to be able to say things like tetralogy of Fallot and, you know, VSD and ASD, and people know what you're talking about. It's almost like we're speaking a different language sometimes. Right. So it's nice. Yeah.
Awesome. And so you also experienced this time, your journey of going into a one-income family. So what was that like for you, and what was that like for your husband? So to walk us through this, what happened? How was this?
So like I said, we didn't know for, I think it was like 4 or 5 months. We weren't sure if he had this defect or not, if anything was wrong. And so for 4 or 5 months, it was up in the air whether we could deliver at our local hospital or if we needed to go to Louisville. And like I said, it was about 2 or 3 weeks before he was born when we finally got that diagnosis. And along with that diagnosis is that, you know, it's not advised that heart babies go into daycare, especially for Miles, because he was born at the end of October. So that would put him right in the middle of cold and flu season.
Which we're going through right now.
And, you know, for heart babies, at least for Miles before his surgery, like now he's okay. But before surgery, they don't, you know, they handle respiratory issues and things like that a lot worse than a normal baby. So they tend to get sicker than a normal baby, and they'll stay sicker longer. So it's just a terrible idea, you know, to do daycare at all. So so we didn't really have much of a notice. He was born in October, and then I didn't go back to work. So we were suddenly a one-income family, and it was stressful, but, you know, we made it through it.
Good for you guys. Yeah. I can only imagine I'm sure there was relief, of course, when you found out for sure that he did have CHD, but then to have like all the dramatic changes all at once, you know, you go from the diagnosis, which is no laughing matter, then you go to the a single income family, which, you know, all of this is coming at you all at once. So what were you doing to take time for you, or what were you doing to give yourself Because, I have to say, if I were going through this journey, Brooke, I would be in tears.
There was a lot of crying.
So what were you doing at the time to keep yourself sane and to keep yourself grounded?
All I can say is that God was looking out for me because we really didn't. We didn't have we had a lower income, so we didn't have a lot of money to spend. We lived in a rural area. Like I said, I hadn't connected with anyone in the CHD community yet. So it was really just, I think what really did it was we had a son who had a heart defect, but at the end of the day, we were just grateful that, one, we knew about it beforehand, two, that he was alive. And I have to say too, that even though he had this heart defect, the severity of heart defects varies greatly. And we were very fortunate that he was born, you wouldn't have known if I didn't tell you that he had a heart defect. I mean, he was your average baby. He was like 8 pounds, 3 ounces. He didn't have, any kind of issues other than a heart murmur. So for the first 3 months, it was like having a normal baby. So I think a lot of it was just being really grateful that he was here, he was alive, and he was doing well. And then two, I will say, as far as, this was also the first year of our marriage. So all of the changes at once. But the good thing was that I think so much was going on that we didn't have time to pick each other apart. Like, we didn't have time to fight. Let's stay outside. The silver lining.
Right.
Now we have time, so.
Now that life is back to normal.
Oh, you're kind of on my nerves today now.
Go away. Oh, that is so funny. Well, good. So it sounded like you really just, you wrote it together and you supported one another in that journey.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
We, that's one thing we learned, that we did make a very good team. And it was really hard, but, another thing with my husband's job, he hadn't been at his job very long. I think he was still in the first 6 months. So on top of that, he couldn't take a lot of time. They were gracious in giving him, time off for his surgery and stuff. But at the same time, we really couldn't afford for him to take off the entire 10 days that Miles was in the hospital. So he wasn't there as much as he wanted to be. And then when he was there, he was having to drive, about 2 hours from his job just to come visit and then drive home and go to work. So it was a lot of sacrifices on both of our ends.
So you're living an hour and a half from the hospital.
Yeah.
And your husband's job was 2 hours from the hospital.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was crazy.
What?
Yeah, there were a lot of phone calls from me to him crying.
Oh, I can imagine. Did you have family that was helping you out?
Yeah, we did.
Helping you? Okay.
Yeah, that was the good part, is we did have family come stay, a couple nights here and there. So that was helpful.
Oh my gosh, Brooke. Are you guys from Tennessee originally, or are you?
No. We're from different parts of Kentucky. And we just moved to Tennessee like a year ago last week, actually, for my husband's job. He got a new job.
Okay.
So now we're a one-income family, but in a good way.
Wow. And talk about Miles today. How is he doing?
Yeah. So Miles is doing amazing. Again, he really only had like a brief time when he was a baby where he was sick. So he was born, he was healthy, great, gaining weight, eating like a champ. And then at 3 months old, he just suddenly went into heart failure. I say suddenly, it's not as suddenly as you would think. Basically, he just started sleeping a lot. He wasn't eating as much, those kind of things. So he went into heart failure, and they actually bumped up his surgery from May to March. So we went ahead and took care of it. Yeah.
Wow.
They had originally planned for May because they wanted to wait till we were out of cold and flu season. But when he went into heart failure, we couldn't wait. So he had his surgery. We went home on the 8th day, and then we had to come back immediately the next morning because he caught a virus. So we had 2 more days in. But ever since then, he's done great. And you would never know, again today, you would never know, aside from his scars, that he's had heart surgery. And so, that's really why I advocate so much for CHD.
Yeah.
Not because like we need help with anything. It's not because, he's suffering or anything like that. It's mostly because I am so aware of how lucky we are that he's had one surgery. That's all they think that he's going to have.
That's fantastic.
That, and like in the CHD world, that alone is huge.
That is huge.
And then, just the fact that he survived and he's here and he's expected to live the rest of his life. And that's, that's not the case for a lot of babies. And it devastates me. I follow some stories and every time I hear the stories, it just,
breaks you up all over again.
Yeah.
One of my good friends, in fact, she's going to be on the show next week, Kelly Blumenthal. I followed her journey with Finn. In fact, I knew Kelly before Finn was even born. Like Kelly and I knew each other through mutual friends.
Before Finn was famous.
Before Finn was famous, right? He really has become a face of CHD.
He has. Yeah.
Right.
I was talking to someone at the American Heart Association and I mentioned her name and she said, I don't think I know who that is. And I said, well, do you know Finn? And she was like, oh yeah, I know Finn. I was like,
well, that's Finn's mom. But, every time we chat or every time we talk, it seems like she's bringing up someone else who's passed away. She'll be like, oh, Molly, we just went to another funeral today. And I don't think that we talk enough in our society and we have enough information about CHD because it truly is. I mean, you are so fortunate, Brooke.
Yeah.
But from what I understand from Kelly and the stories that she's told me, that this is can be a devastating diagnosis for people.
Absolutely.
And what do you know what is being done in the CHD world to raise awareness for this? Because I feel like everyone should know about this. And, it's on one level, not that we had CHD in our family, but my dad passed away last year around this time. In fact, it was last February 2nd, from a heart aneurysm. And so the heart, there's so many diseases around the heart and it affects so many of us. And I don't feel like we hear enough of it. And I would love for there to be more awareness around this, Brooke, because it's, well, like I said, we don't have CHD in our family, but that heart, like when it stops, you're done.
Yeah.
And so what is being done right now to raise awareness about this, Brooke, and draw attention to it? Because you guys were fortunate. Some families are not even, they don't get that diagnosis, right. and their child has it and they pass away, or you know what I'm saying. And it just seems to me like there needs to be more done to talk about this and to. So what do you know, being part of this community, Brooke, of what's being done right now too?
Yeah. So I work a little bit with PCHA, the Pediatric Congenital Heart Association. Mm-hmm. Really the main focus right now is working on legislation for CHD, making sure that the funding is there for the research, because the biggest issue, and I think probably what makes it so hard to advocate for, is that we don't have a cause, we don't know what causes it, and we don't have a cure. So I think that, if we just had a cure, if we just had one of those things, then we could say, give a more specific way of advocating for it. But, as of now, it's like we don't know. And the strangest thing is that, the statistics are 1 in 100, 40,000 babies. But in reality, the U.S. doesn't keep track of these statistics. They don't keep track of CHD babies. So that you are hearing are actually populated from Canada, because they do track it there. So it's really frustrating. And so most of the work
that's very frustrating.
Most of the work that everyone is doing is trying to get the funding there, trying to get the research there so that we can make progress. Because like some of the most popular procedures, like what my son had done, a VSD repair, has been around for decades. And there have been some improvements, but at the end of the day, we still don't have a cause. We still don't have a cure. So last year I went with PCHA. They host a conference every year in DC, and a bunch of parents and survivors of CHD go talk to our legislators, and we make a point to tell them how important it is to us, and try to get them on the Heart Caucus and all of that good stuff. So
good for you guys.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, you're talking about CHD, and it sounds like there's a lot of similarities between CHD and autism. And we're part of the autism community because we don't have a cure.
Yeah, or a cause.
We don't know what causes it. And, you know, they don't keep very good stats on this either.
Really?
No. And I was doing some research on this earlier. I'm part of the Partners in Policymaking here in Virginia.
Yeah.
And so I was doing some research pertaining to something I was doing, Partners in Policymaking. And it blew me away that they don't keep the numbers. Yeah. So therefore, they don't have the funding. You know, like we have different organizations, national organizations, of course, that advocate. You guys have Heart of America. We have a National Autism. But
like that's step one. You have to have numbers.
Exactly. Well, I think it's just been very recent where they've started documenting. They know how many people it affects, and the number continues to climb. But it struck me when you were talking about what the similarities we have in our two different communities.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you have to start with tracking it, though.
Yeah, it's like that's what's so frustrating. I'm like,
right.
One, we need tracking, and then we need funding, and we need research, and you know, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Yeah. So you work, it sounds like then if you work in your local, like down in Tennessee, you're working with other moms down there that have that diagnosis?
Yeah. For Tennessee, the PCHA chapter is, we have Heart Moms, and we had a heart survivor, and she actually just transferred to the Adult Congenital Heart Association because that makes more sense for her. So,
right.
You know, everyone has been affected by CHD, and we're just trying to make a difference. Trying to get
for you guys.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Good, perfect. So anything? Is there any questions out there? Anyone who's in our audience? Questions? Okay. So Brooke, what else? I'm going to just veer away and just talk a little bit about just you as a blogger. Do you blog about Miles? Do you blog about this, or what is, you know, what's your main focus on in your own professional world?
Yeah. So, I actually started my blog because of Miles.
Okay.
But because of his heart, I call him my Sour Patch Kid because he is so sweet sometimes, but he's also so mischievous. And that's how it started. I would share stories about things that he was doing on my personal Facebook, and everybody thought it was just so funny. And so I started the blog. And my blog is a little bit, it's mostly just about being a mom and being a wife and kind of trying to find the humor in all of the chaos. But I do also talk about CHD. I mention it here and there, and I try to advocate since I have the platform to do that now.
Yes.
Just try to do my part because, again, we are so lucky, and I almost sometimes have to kind of like step away from like when I see stories come up on, you know, my CHD groups and stuff, I don't know. I just, you know, I get really close to it, and I realize, you know, when babies are dying, and I'm just going to say it because people don't like to hear that, but babies are dying from CHD. Mm-hmm. And when I hear those stories, I mean, I grieve for these babies because I realize, you know, how closely that could have been us, you know.
Sure.
And why, you know, why wasn't it us? I'm so thankful that it wasn't, but at the same time, you know, my heart goes out to the parents, you know, why was it them? And just, it's devastating.
Absolutely. Well, keep doing that, Brooke. Keep raising awareness, keep talking. You're doing an amazing job.
Hey, how are you?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you know, it's so important. And I feel like as a mom with a child, Jacob, who's autistic, it is just so important on all of our parts as parents to raise that awareness, to keep talking about it, because if we're not advocating for them, who else?
Exactly.
You know, so we are so thankful that Miles is kicking butt today, and he is
mischievous.
Yeah. So how is he? How old is he now? Is he a little over a year old?
He's actually almost 2.5.
2.5. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. That's when's his birthday, Brooke?
October 23rd. And
that's right. You said it was October. Yep.
He shares a birthday with his older sister, who's 5.
That's fun. Does he have any other siblings?
Yes, he has. We had another little girl. Her name's Harper, and she's 8 months old now.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, and she actually, of course, when I was pregnant with her, I was super paranoid. And she actually does have a CHD too. She has a VSD, but hers is different in that they think it's going to heal on its own. So she's 8 months old, perfectly healthy, fine. It's just something we have to keep an eye on. But
wow. So she had wow. So it happened. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But
she's good.
It'll be fine.
I was not exactly the most emotionally stable when she was around 3 months old because I was a little bit paranoid, but
sure.
The cardiologists know what they're talking about and it's fine.
So, oh my goodness. Wow. Well, I'm glad to know that all of them are healthy, happy, sweet little kids.
Yes.
So on a random note, since they both share the same birthday, do you have a dual birthday party for the two, or what do you guys normally do?
Yes. I'm going to do it until they start complaining. I'll probably still do it then too. I'm not trying to have 2 birthday parties.
What's that?
I'm not trying to have 2 birthday parties in 1 month.
So you just bring the 2 sets of friends and you just, oh, that's so funny. That's awesome. Good.
That's right.
Very fun. Wonderful, Brooke. Well, thank you again for being on here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And that wraps up really do you have anything else that you want to add into?
I don't think so. I think if you're a heart mom or a heart patient and you haven't connected with your CHD community, reach out and connect. PCHA is a great organization to do that. And, I can't really put into words what it's like to be involved in the community, but it's worth it. And I wish I would have been involved before his surgery.
That's awesome. Are there any groups on Facebook or any groups on social media that they can connect with?
If you're in Tennessee, there's a Nashville Heart Group. And really, if you just look up CHD, there are several CHD communities. One is CHD community that I know of, but there are a bunch of different pages. So
excellent.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, hopefully then some heart moms or heart dads will be able to connect in with their community.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, that wraps up our second interview then for Movement Monday. And if you have any questions, please let us know. And if you know someone that you think would be good for Movement Monday, please message me or leave me a note in the comments. Brooke, thank you once again for spending your evening with us. And we had fun. I'm glad that you could join us tonight.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks.